going to record to the cloud. All right, super duper. Let's make sure that's good. Share screen. Lock room. All right, here we go. So we'll try in this lesson, see if I can expand that. So one, send an email, and then we'll read and analyze the content of an email for pronouns and sequencers, and then we'll try to find an authentic online advice column. Then we will also read and analyze it for pronouns and sequencers. I think learning targets 3 and 4 are useful. Dr. Wu just set your reading test. Now, I don't know when we're going to have a reading test, but I made up all the questions and I focus on learning targets 3 and 4. Do you know what words refer to in the text you're reading? Okay. So first things first, if you can you please send me an email? Right here. Send it right here. I'm sending you my email address. Nope, not here. Right here. Nope, that's not it either. David JW. Okay. David JW at class.cskms. Let's try that first. Number 1. Can you please send me an email? Let's just see what you already know. Speaking of emails, I'll probably check your email compositions today and tomorrow. Good, nice, Jermaine. Excellent. So while we're waiting, just as a quick review, an email has a subject line, has a sender, has a receiver. I'll do it one more time. An email has a sender, from, has a receiver. Now there's other information too, in addition to a subject line, has a timestamp, a date and timestamp. And then there's some other important details. Of course, there's a body, but in this email, Jermaine did not include a body. Right? Let's see. Thank you, Jermaine. Dr. Ayush, Bosco, Jaden, Leba, Victor, Gordon. Can you send an email? Welcome back, Angelica. Dr. Ayush, excellent. So this time we notice, share the screen, that Dr. Ayush included something in his body. There we are. So not only does Dr. Ayush have a subject line, but he also has a body now. Now this is where the body goes. So we click reply, and we see reply to Dr. Ayush. Forward an email to, which means send it to someone else. You can edit the subject. Just a few other features here. You can add signatures here. You can change the font size. You can do many things within the body of an email. So these features are useful for the body. I'll do it one more time. So when I'm replying to an email, we see that the email is being sent to this person, Dr. Ayush. I can always change the receiver. I can change the subject line. This is where my body is, or my new body goes. These are the contents from the previous email. This is my signature to the email. These are functions that I can add to my email. Okay. Let's see what we got. Ooh, nice. Nice, Victor. Nice, Bosco. That's it. Okay. Great. One final thing. Look at the word draft. Draft. Draft means something that isn't finalized. So you can take a look at this email that I'm preparing for Dr. Ayush, and I haven't sent him the email yet. Before I send him an email, the email is a draft. Okay, one more time, draft. So unsent emails are drafts. All right, so we have about 50%. Half of you can send an email. I recommend, well, let's get rid of that first. Jaden and Leba and Angelica and Gordon, are you having trouble sending an email? Do you need help? Gordon, Angelica, Jaden, and Leba. Do you need help sending an email? Okay, great. Thank you, Leba. So something that we should also know about email is sometimes sending and receiving an email are not instantaneous. That is, once we hit the send button, the email isn't necessarily immediately received. Will you receive this email immediately, Dr. Ayush? Here we go, send email. That's it. Thank you. That's all for you. That's all for you. Warmly, Dr. Thanks, Victor. I like adding a signature to every email that I send because if we don't, it's hard to say who this person is. Oftentimes we get a lot of email that comes from people, unfamiliar people, which is why it's always important in the body to tell people who we are. You may not necessarily know, for instance, that my first name is David, and you may not necessarily know that the W stands for Wu. And adding this signature helps to identify myself so that you know, oh, it's Dr. Wu. Great. Yes, it is what we're supposed to do. Thanks, Jaden. Thanks, Angelica. Great job. Okay. Here we go. Let's go to our reading passage. Ooh, nice. And the reading passage is on page, is this page 95? Page 95. Oh, it's page 96. So we have an email here. It's missing a few things. First things first, two. What email features is the email on page 96 missing? Let's try that first. Before we even read, we just reviewed email features. I'm going to make this just a bit smaller. That's 3, 4. Identify email features. Okay. Gordon. Anything? Angelica, Dr. Ayush, look at this text. What is? Oh, thanks for sharing, Jaden. Now, I'm asking you, take a look at this and compare it to this. What do we see here that we don't see here? Don't they look different here and here? Don't they look different? So what do we see here in Gmail that we don't see here? So Jaden, on page 96, we see paragraphs. And in Gmail, in this email, for example, we don't see paragraphs. But I'm asking, what do we see in Gmail that we don't see on page 96? I'll write that again. What do we see in Gmail email that we don't see on the page 96 email. And Dr. Ayush is correct. That's one thing that we don't see. We don't see a subject line. This. Do you see that every email has a subject line? In fact, that is shown for every email. So every email must have a subject line. Yet the subject line here, there is no subject line. Okay. The subject line would perhaps be over here. And there's a lot more information that is missing that should be over here. So good. Thank you, Dr. Ayush. Anything else? It's page 96. The email on page 96 is missing a lot of information. And the subject line is just one piece of missing information. Bosco? Jaden? Leba? Victor? Jermaine? Anything else? Okay. Then let's go through this. It doesn't show who it is sent from and who it was sent to. Great. Yes. Yes, Angelica. So the sender equals who the email was sent from. Is sent from. Recipient who the email is sent to. Yeah, it's missing that information too. So, for instance, here, we always see who the email was sent from. These are the senders of the emails. They're always here. And who's the recipient? The recipient should be you, or in this case, me. I am the recipient. That's me. So all of these emails are being sent to me. So I am the recipient. These are the senders. Okay. Now, if in this case, we see in this email, Gordon is the sender, I am the recipient. Okay, so from But when we reply to this email, the roles reverse. Actually, they don't reverse. So if I reply to this email, I become the sender, and Gordon should become the recipient. All right. Okay. Great. Nice job. Nice job, Dr. Ayu. Nice job, Angelica. All right, let's take a turn. Or actually, who has a working mic? I would like to read aloud. I just don't know who in this chat actually can read aloud, that is, has a working mic. I would ask you guys to read aloud. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Ayush. Gordon, Angelica, Bosco, Jaden, Leba, Victor, Jermaine. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for responding. Okay, thank you, Angelica. Well, Angelica, do you mind reading aloud? Could you read the email for us?
Dear Fairy Godmother, my wife Cinderella spends hours taking selfies and sharing them on social media websites every day. When we go out to eat, she takes photos of every dish we eat, edits them with filters, and posts them on social media websites. Then she spends the entire meal checking the numbers of likes on her phone instead of talking to me. I feel bored and lonely, but I don't know what to do. Next month, we're going to a party at our friend's castle. The party lasts for 6 hours. I hope she can talk to me and our friends instead of playing on her phone all the time. Could you please help me? Your sincerely worried husband.
Thank you, Angelica. And thank you, Leba, for responding. Okay, let's go through a few questions about the pronouns. Number one, what does them refer to? You can just type it in the chat. What is them? Yes, thanks, Jermaine. Super. Them. Selfies is them. Great. Number two, who are we? You're close, Dr. Ayush. But the answer is not Cinderella and Dr. Ayush. Yes. Jermaine, that's correct. Now, Dr. Ayush raises a good point. And I'm going to test this on your reading test because I made the questions. So you have to think about you, and you are Dr. Ayush, Jermaine, I am Dr. Wu, and we're responding to a question. We refers to Cinderella and worried husband, or the husband and wife. Sure. These are acceptable answers. What's not acceptable is, for instance, my wife Cinderella. Because you are answering the question as you, Dr. Ayush or Jermaine or Dr. Wu. And your wife, Dr. Ayush, is not Cinderella. So that's something that I will test. I promise you, I will test this on your reading test because I made the questions. And I specifically wrote down, if anyone writes my wife, it's wrong. Okay. So it's actually worried husband or husband and Cinderella or wife. Okay. Any questions? Okay. Next. Let's test it again. Who is she? Line 4. Good. Yes. Cinderella or the wife, not my wife, the wife. And the in this case means this, as in this email. Cinderella or the wife. Next. What are them? I'm not sure, Dr. Ayush. And my first comment about selfie is that's just one. Okay, so selfie means one. Them means more than one. Okay. Okay. Any other answers? Gordon, Angelica, Bosco, Jaden. Photos. Okay. Yeah, we're getting. Can you be more specific? So Dr. Ayush thinks selfies refers to them. Angelica thinks photos refers to them. Self photos, okay. Okay. All right. Getting close. Can anyone be a bit more specific? Photos of what? A photo of your own face? Okay. Thank you, Gordon. So I think this word is, yes, Leba. Yes. Okay. We're a bit distracted by selfies. Technically, them is a pronoun and it should refer to an object. So we should look at the object of a sentence and we should look at the object of perhaps the previous sentence or clause. So I think Cinderella takes photos of every dish we eat, edits photos of every dish we eat with filters and posts. Do you see that in the previous clause?
Is there something else I can help?
In the previous clause, the object.
Sorry, I'm still not sure about that.
Is photos of every dish we eat. And then she edits them. So first, this is the sequence. 1, she takes photos of every dish we eat. 2, she edits photos of every dish we eat. Now let's go to the third question, or actually the next question. What does them refer to in line 6? Yep. Can you be more specific, Jaden? Okay. Yeah, Dr. Ayush. Great. Great, Jaden. Great. Super. So here we go again. This is the sequence. First, Cinderella takes photos of every dish we eat. 2, Cinderella edits photos of every dish we eat. 3, Cinderella posts photos of every dish we eat on social media websites. Them is the same them in the previous clause and then in the first clause of a sentence. Do you see that there are actually 3 sentences in one sentence? And the object of each clause is the same. Photos of every dish we eat, photos of every dish we eat, photos of every dish we eat. All right. Then she spends the entire meal checking the number of likes on her phone instead of talking to me. Who is me? In line 8. Here's a hint. It's not Dr. Wu. Bosco, you're close. Jermaine, you're correct. Okay. So you see the worried husband is the sender of the email. That means he's the writer of the email too. Okay. So in this email, my and me, they're references to the worried husband, who is the writer and sender of the email. And how do you know? Usually, the writer adds the signature here, or the closing. So the writer identifies himself at the end. Okay, next question. Who is I? Who is I in line 8? That's right, Jaden. So in this case, again, nothing has changed. The worried husband is the writer and sender of the email. So my, me, I, all refer to the worried husband. But I don't know what to do. Okay. Next month, we're going to a party at our friend's castle. Who does our refer to? Line 10. Yes. Okay. Great job, Jermaine. Next month, we, that is Cinderella and I, are going to a party at the husband and the husband's wife's friend's castle. The party lasts for 6 hours. I hope she can talk to me. Okay. Now, this isn't the best referencing. I don't approve of this. I don't approve of this at all, but who is she? In line 11. Cinderella, yes. Okay. Final question. Who is you on line 12? Fairy godmother. Thank you. Great job, guys. Okay. Good. Oh, hallelujah. You've done a great job of reading the text and understanding Who is who? There are a lot of pronouns in this email. I think there are too many. I think there's so many that it's confusing. Nonetheless, it seems like you guys have a good grasp of who is whom in this email. Any questions? Okay, thank you, Jade. Okay, thank you, Layla. Now we're going to page 98. Page 98. And first things first, on page 98, are we looking at an email? Is the page 98 text an email? No. Yes, I agree, Angelica. Totally agree with you. It looks like an email, but it's not an email. In spite of what you see, you're not looking at an email. An email is not an online advice column. Now, what do they have in common? Both are online. Emails and advice columns require the internet, but they're not the same. Just seems to look the same. Let's see, we have about 12 minutes. Let's do something. Okay, let's just quickly continue. Who is the writer of the online advice column on page 98? Yes, okay. So we can see here, again, the writer usually identifies himself or herself by the signature. All right. So we see fairy godmother, in this case, is the writer. Whereas in the email on page 96, fairy godmother is the recipient. Question. On page 96 in the email, what do you think next month refers to? Which month could we reasonably think next month refers to? Given what you know from the page 98 advice column, what is probably next month? Yes, Jermaine. I agree. I think it's reasonable that if the email was sent in March and the advice column is sent in March, then next month is probably April. Unfortunately, we don't have the date and timestamp in this email. That's something that's missing. That would be very helpful for us to know. And we know that all emails must have date and timestamps. So you see here, we see the date of sending, and if it was sent today, we see the time of sending. So all emails have date and time stamps. So, good morning, Jaden. So we see the time stamp, and it was sent today from Jaden's email. We see it here as well, the date and time stamp. That's really important for us to know. And unfortunately, on the email, on page 96, we don't have the date and timestamp. It's really missing a lot of stuff. Not only the subject line, the sender and the receiver, but it's also missing date and timestamps. So this is a lower level way to teach email. It's not the best way. It's a lower level way. Quickly, actually, you know what? We'll just continue this for our next lesson. I think for our next lesson, we're going to try to find an online advice column, an actual online advice column. So for our next lesson, we'll try to find an actual online advice column. We'll go through the pronouns in this online advice column, and then we'll try the dictation. So that's for our next lesson. And when is our next lesson? Wow, we don't have another lesson for a while. Okay. Okay. Okay, maybe I'll set this for homework then. We won't be seeing each other until when? Till May 4th. Okay, so on May 4th, we'll have a dictation, and we'll also, I'll set a homework assignment before May 4th, so you can send me an authentic online advice column, and you can show me you understand what some of the pronouns are on the page 98 advice column. Okay, any questions? right. Great job.